So welcome to our Family Fusion Parents Q&A. I'm KamalaDevi.
And I'm Michael Mcclur.
And this is our second experiment into this summer family camp for ISTA. And we have some harvest from the first experiment. And then obviously we've all been through this massive initiation and things are evolving and growing. And we'd love to vision with you some of what's possible this summer. And in that, whether you're coming with us or not, it'd be great to hear like both, what are your questions and concerns as parents, as well as, what would you want from a family camp for your kids? And so just, to outline up front what we're doing is I'm going to run this a bit like a panel. So I'm going to introduce the team in a moment, and then share a bit of the big picture of the vision of what we're doing, then open it up to questions, which I know a lot of you are like, I don't even know what to ask. So we front loaded, we got questions about like, what are the ages of the kids? How's it different from level 1? What about sexual boundaries and what's age appropriate? And like, these are the questions we're all asking and talking about. So we'll definitely address that. And then whatever else comes up. And then at the end of the call, if there's any logistical notes, or next steps, we'll go to that. So I'm going to start by introducing the team, and I'm going to welcome Crystal Dawn. Oh, who doesn't have sound? Hold on one second.
She has to unmute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Dawn, and I'm going to be one of the co-facilitators. I'm a mother of 2 sons. I have 5 grandchildren. The oldest is 24 and the youngest is 8. And I'm super excited to be part of this experiment.
Excellent. Rich.
Hi, I'm Rich. And I beat Crystal Dawn. I have 5 children and 9 grandchildren. And all my children are grown as well. And I'm just so excited about this. I remember when I was raising my kids way back in the day, how difficult it was for me to talk about all of this that we talk about in ISTA. And so I'm really excited about this.
Excellent. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, and I'm Michael Mcclur, and I, together with KamalaDevi, have a 15-year-old son, and he was present at the last experiment a couple of years ago as well. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to just being able to have a peak experience that is going to be set in Devin's memory, for his lifetime. And I know that the last experiment was that for him, and I'm really looking forward to having that for all of the kids and for the parents as well, having it to be a peak experience with the entire family.
Yeah, and Michael's really wonderful with the kids as a program director. He can get them in all kinds of adventures. Philippe, tell us a little bit about you and your role.
Okay, my name is Philippe Lewis. I'm going to be the organizer for this training. So I handle all the logistics, everything that needs to happen, the earthly level, so that everybody can make it there safe and sound with all their questions answered, and feeling their nervous system relaxed, not just for them, but also for the whole family. We all know that moving a family can be a bit of a thing. So I'm here to be in support. And it's also like a special relationship that I have with KD, because the birth of a training, whether it's a level 1 or family fusion, each time it wants to be manifest, and each time there's a call, there needs to be an organizer and a lead that come together with that vision to make it happen. So I'm happy to be here, taking care of all the things. And
bringing a special guest.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm bringing 2 special guests. I'm bringing my wife, Paget, who's on the call somewhere down there, and also my son, who's 10. His name is Phoenix, and he's a beautiful ball of curiosity and excitement and wisdom. I'm so amazed by how much wisdom he's got. Like, he's got things nailed down that I don't think I had nailed down when I was 20. So I'm super happy to see him bring his wisdom and his playfulness to the group, and as an expression of our family and the abundance that we created together in creating him.
So on this in youthful, innocent enthusiasm, I'd love to continue to introduce the team. We have other assistants that are coming together to vision it, but I'm going to ask, I'm going to do an icebreaker, and the team will model it, and then anyone who's on the call who also wants to join in and introduce yourself can do it. So basically, the invitation is that we invoke the inner child. And I'm going to have you actually introduce your inner child, because we're going to be bringing that part of ourselves to the family camp. So I'm going to ask everyone to stand up, whether you're on team or not, and to shake your body. So much of what we're doing, we want to do it from the whole body. And if we're going to invoke the inner children, it's not from the mind. So I'm going to invite you to make some sound. And be a little bit goofy. And so I'm going to call in some of the teammates, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as their inner children. And maybe I'll start with you, Michael, because you're a good leader on that. But let's get other teammates in here. Let's see. I know we have Kat and Camila, and I know Naya's here. Who am I missing? I'm gonna get, okay, good. So we'll start there, and if I'm missing someone, Philippe will let me know. Okay, so Michael.
Okay, just name and my inner.
Yeah, let your inner child come through as an introduction.
I am.
And what you're excited about family camp.
Yes. I am Michael the Explorer, and I cannot wait to shoot the bow and arrow that I know is going to be there, and do a lot of exploring in the rocks and in the landscape there.
Awesome. Call on someone.
Kat.
I'm Katerina, kitty cat Katerina, and I love climbing rocks, boulders, trees, over people. I'm really into things like silks, lyra, trail running, hot yoga. I'm basically identify as an athlete, and I'm really just, I love that land. The first time I was there, I was just so excited because I could feel the Indian presence there, and it just made me want to just run around on the rocks and play. And I'm just kind of a big kid, really, as a lot of the people who know me know. And I would call on Camila.
All right. So Camila, my inner child's Mila, and I'm excited to climb on the rocks and climb trees with Kitty Cat and Michael the Explorer, because I like to spend most of my time being active and outdoors too. And as soon as you said bow and arrow, I was like, yes, I can't wait for that. That was my favorite toy as a kid. Who else? Sarah, Naya.
My name is Naya, and I would like to climb trees and jump and play and move my body in many different ways. So if we get to go together and our bodies together, I'm really excited for that.
Beautiful. And Crystal Dawn, does your little, your inner child want to say something?
Yeah, my little girl inner child is super excited about dancing and singing and having campfires and having adventures in the rocks. And I love playing Indians and pioneers and explorers, and who knows what else will come up, but I'm excited to have other people to play with.
Yeah.
Choose somebody else.
So I, before Rich goes, I want to share like what's here for me is like this really shy teenager. My inner teenager was shy about developing breasts and about being seen and, you know, and really kind of like, oh no, people, you know, and that's actually super present for me. My inner child wanting to be seen, but not to be seen, and really looking for a safe space to explore. Rich.
I'm little Ricky, and it's so funny that you would ask this question because it just so happens that I love to be free and run around in my underwear. And it just so happens that I showed up to this meeting in my underwear. Yeah. So it's funny that you would ask that question today. Whoops.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sweet. So, Philippe, is there an inner child voice that wants to come through?
Yeah, he likes to. I like to dress up. I like to put all kinds of clothes on so I can be the things I put my clothes on like. and I like to dress everybody else up too because I want them to be explorers and astronauts and ringleaders and circus performers too.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We didn't have Philippe at our last family camp, but this year I can see a costume closet coming. So it'd be really fun to have a costume closet. Yeah. Excellent. So what I'd love to do is a bit of a bigger picture about Family Fusion and then open it up to the questions. So the key though, you know, just to note is that there are others on the team who couldn't make the call, and they have specializations in, for example, outdoor skills and theater. Well, one is Erin, who wants to teach the group to do like how to make fires, how to chop wood, some of those outdoor survival skills, which we're excited about. And then Jacob is on the team because he's a total specialist in theater and improv and comedy, which is actually like we're theater folk ourselves. So one of the things that we find with youth is how easy it is not only to engage the imagination, but to like step into various alter egos and identities. And theater is very much like spiritual growth. It's, you know, it points towards the play of life where we can actually get over, you know, our limiting beliefs and step into new possibilities. So that's pretty central. And even if your child is shy and not a theater person, being in an environment where they can dress up and play or see other kids doing that creates like there's an inspiration and a mixing of medicines there. So we're delighted to be bringing various skills, and the real intention, and I'll share, this was born out of a kind of a need. As parents who, you know, are really devoted to the awakening on the planet and sacred sexual enlightenment, we found ourselves really divided, really split. It's like, oh, we had our family life at home and then we'd do this big work in the world, but it felt schizophrenic. It felt like almost even, what's the word when you're a hypocrite? Like hypocritical. Yeah, like, oh, we can, you know, be the sacred sexy, like, but we're still perpetuating the mother whore paradox, or, you know, like in the case of the masculine, like this super dad, and then, you know, expected to perform and provide and to do all this stuff, and then separated from his purpose. And so we, out of it, like from a deep call to wanting to integrate, we're looking for other parents, and we're like, how do you do this? How do you navigate this? And even if sacred sexuality isn't your calling, it's like, how do you be fully yourself? And the more that we deepened this conversation, the more we realized that, oh, if we want the world to be different, it has to start with our kids. It's like an imperative that we start learning from the next generation and providing connection between, you know, our sexuality and their sexuality, because currently that's the biggest fracture on the planet, I believe, is that a child is taught, oh, if you want to be like your parents' sex is bad and wrong, you've got to learn sex somewhere else. And so what that divide does is it pathologizes how people, like it makes sex unnatural, and how people learn it is now disconnected from where they came from, you know, from the essence of this is what life force does. And so, you know, beyond all the philosophy, what that looks like practically is how do we be ourselves and integrate with our developing kids who are naturally erotic and naturally curious? How do we do that in such a way that isn't shaming and you know, like overwhelming to them? And we want to do it so that it nurtures their natural curiosity while being developmentally appropriate. So really tending to what is their readiness, you know, where's their consent? And unfortunately, every child, unfortunately, obviously they're unique souls who develop differently. There's no particular, like what consent looks like for one age isn't the same as the other age. And we're not really interested in cookie cutter, you know, child development formulas. What we're interested in is holistic family and saying, hey, we're going to have this experience. How do we provide a space where you can stay in the shallow end if other kids want to go to the deep end, and you can, you know, be safely in your joy and then be synergizing with the group, as opposed to feeling either left behind or separate, or like anyone's shaming you for not learning how to swim in the deep end. So I'm just giving that as a metaphor, but I wanted to say that the experiment part is like, how do we move together as a family instead of like, oh, let's send our kids off to daycare. Let's send our kids off to sexual education. Let's separate so the kids are alone and learning separate from family. It's like, no, we're all family and we're all in it together. And that includes all ages, which is really trippy to have, you know, like when I look at the list of our son's 15, there's 5-year-olds coming. It's like sometimes the last time, you know, we had a 14-year-old boy who was so in love with this 2-year-old, and the two of them, neither of them had brothers. They just bonded like soul brothers. And it was like, who knew? And it was just a sweet, like this 15-year-old wanted to have this bond with this child. There's different medicine exchanges that kids can have from each other at different ages. And there's certainly healing that we get from being around youth at different ages as well. So I wanted to just share a big picture that we have, you know, full rich curriculum, full rich schedule, and a lot of it's very optional depending on age and willingness. And there's alternate, you know, ways for the kids to play who don't want to engage in whatever, you know, whether it's drama or outdoor skills. If that's not their nature, nobody's forced to do anything. It's, yeah, and I will speak in a moment to that sex appropriateness and what our sexual boundaries are, because that question I know is really quite hot. But that's sort of the big picture. And then I'll get into the questions. Is there anything you want to add for the big picture?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm looking at the group and
Katie?
Yeah.
Jacob just showed up. So
I've seen down there.
Fantastic. I'd love to put you on the spot, Jacob. We had the team introduce themselves from their inner children, which is to just do a little shape shifting. I'm gonna spotlight you.
I did it.
Perfect. And so
you talk about what you're excited about.
Yeah, if your inner child wants to introduce themselves and let us know what excites you.
Hi, can you hear me? What am I excited about is play, of course. I'm excited to play and to play with archetypes and to put on costumes, and whether it's a physical costume or just embodying a role, and yeah, exploring the different roles that excite me, excite us, or scare us, or make us come alive.
Awesome.
And interact.
Beautiful. So I wanted to poll the group and see who in the group is has questions or comments, really, and also, you know, want to honor that myself, Camila, Jacqueline, we're at the last adventure, and every adventure is different. Like, you know, depending on who the families are, the team is different, so it's going to be a different experience. But Jacqueline, if you are willing to let me put you on the spot, I'd love to hear if you have, you know, anything you wanted to share from our last. You had a 5-year-old there at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a 5-year-old, and I went by myself, which was a rather intense experience that I wasn't quite prepared for. Just her level of emotional processing that opened up in the ISTA container was something to like really note and be, you know, in full devotion and service to a 5-year-old's emotional processing would be kind of my takeaway from it. And let's see. Yeah, I'm really curious about her going again. She's almost 8 now, so I think it could be a really cool integration and just, you know, experience. She has really fond memories of it. She loved it. She has her pictures, and she has a digital picture frame, and she pauses the ISTA pictures all the time.
Oh, that's sweet.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was really beautiful because you were a single mom. There was like your daughter bonding with the aunties and the uncles, and, you know, like the tribe in a way that actually, you know, in an ideal world, like this is a temporary experiment, but in an ideal world, there's a lot more support for single parents. So it was really beautiful. Thank you. So I want to just look around and see if there's other questions and comments. You can just raise your hand like this. Good.
There's Isaac.
Isaac.
Hi, everybody. Really glad to be here on this call. Thank you for hosting it. And yeah, my question is regarding my son. So my hope is to come with both my son and my father. And my son is 17 years old, will be be about 17 and a half by the time this event takes place. And my question, which is also, I guess, kind of a concern, is around his age appropriateness for either category of child versus adult. He's right on this threshold. And I'm anticipating that many of the children that will be there will be younger than him, and certainly most of the adults will be much older than him. And I'm concerned about him not feeling comfortable in either space, or being even welcome. I mean, I know he'll be welcome, but whether or not it will be a welcoming environment for him. And so that's one part of my question / concern for him. The other one has to do with, you know, I'm hearing the vision around holding a high bar, the same sort of experience that we have for ourselves at ISTA for our children, and sort of like, you know, bringing these awarenesses and experiences to our children, and that's really beautiful. And I'm also noticing, as I'm thinking about this event, that the parts of the ISTA experience that I, as a father, I feel like I want most for my son right now is actually less about the sex education or the sex awakening part of it, and really more about the emotional processing tools and the shamanic work. And so I'm just wondering how much of that we're going to incorporate into the experience.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that from my perspective, you know, that's a good summary of one of the things that makes this different from a level 1. So there are people who will be there who haven't done, you know, level 1. And that's a whole experience into itself. But we're going on a journey of exploration of true like boundaries, like what part of what sovereignty is, and part of like our shamanic empowerment and our emotional maturity is actually knowing who we are and what's a yes and what's a no. And it's a question that's super confusing for kids who are developmentally just still figuring out who they are. And so we tend to, slow everything down, tune everything into like, how do we know what our yeses and nos are? And there's a huge emphasis, not just on the boundaries on the first couple of days, as we do in ISTA, we're like, here, let's teach boundaries. Now that you've got that, let's move on. And this is like, no, actually, every evening we have a playful space for boundaries. And I know your father's a cuddle party facilitator. And out of all the experiments that we had with the kids, what was their favorite?
Yeah, it was the cuddle parties. They wanted to do it every night.
Every night.
We asked them.
Can we do another cuddle party? It's like, sure, let's do it.
We want that. We want it every night.
And part of that cuddle party, which for those of you who don't know, a cuddle party has a non-sexual boundary to it. So you're playing with your, sensuality, you're playing with the cuddling, the sweetness, the outrageous requests, saying no. And the kids would be like, I want to be tickled. I want to be, underneath a pile of adults, or I want to be, they got really creative with their requests because they knew it was a non-sexual space. And they got to ask for what they want and change their mind all the time. I mean, it was awesome to watch kids' cuddles parties every night. And then after the cuddle party was over, when the kids are safely in their tents, sometimes, later in the week, there would be adult spaces. And that is where the non-sexual space, when it's with consenting adults and the kids are asleep, that's really the only adult space. And honestly, in the week, especially, and I'm going to take Jacqueline as an example, if you're a single parent and you're there, or you're keeping up with kids all week, like you're exhausted by the end. It's not like, let's do temple all night long. It's like, are you kidding? We just want to sit by the fire and hug each other and just, down regulate ourselves, because keeping up with kids it's not sustainable to do that much kid activity for 7 days straight. But it is nurturing and memorable and skill building. So when it comes to the actual sexual activity, there is no, teaching of sacred spot. There is no, there's never any exercises where anybody has to take off any clothing. It is a clothing optional space. There is pools and hot tubs. But one of the things that's really cool about being in nature and being naked is the kids kind of get like, hey, parents like to, dress or undress, and the kids may choose to wear their clothes in the pools, and that's totally celebrated. It's just whatever's comfortable. And there's a big distinction between obviously nudity and sexuality. And sexuality, when kids are present, anything under 18, which your kid is not the age of consent. So we're really honoring that 18 is legally the age of consent, and we're not having sexual activity for kids under that, in front of or around. Yeah.
Katie.
Great.
I have a comment.
Question. Yes.
So just add to that.
Let's hear from Rich first, then you, Crystal, Dawn.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the comment about your son and his age sort of being in the middle, just before becoming an adult, and maybe being older than a lot of the kids. And Katie mentioned how, we're kind of used to sending our kids off to events where they're with kids their own age and that sort of thing. But what this is really, again, a family event, and not just your family, but this will become an extended family experience. Like the whole group will become the family. And so he can experience whatever his experience may be. He may experience being kind of like an older brother, or whatever his experience is. It's just a beautiful, huge family kind of experience. So I think I know he'll fit in one way or another.
And I was just going to respond to Isaac and say that, like, I have a really strong shamanic background. I've been doing practicing shamanism for like 35 years. And I'll be excited to figure out cool ways to bring the shamanic magic into age appropriate ways for the kids that can be fun, and to bring those skills in as part of our using our imagination, because using our imagination is a shamanic tool for those who don't know that. And kids are naturally shamanic, which is one of the reasons why I love kids so much, because you can get right in there and just go right into the other realms, and you don't have to explain it and turn it into a thing. So we will definitely be bringing that shamanic magic in, and there will be multiple opportunities to work with emotional release tools, I'm quite certain, on a daily basis. So he will definitely get that information as well.
Awesome. Other questions?
Is there any preparation for the child that you would recommend? My daughter just turned 11. She really hasn't had any, she hasn't had a lot of experience. I haven't really introduced her to this world much. You know, she does know I'm poly and things like that. But I'm just trying to think, you know, I want to limit the possibility of her having something like a meltdown or a temper tantrum that interferes with the other kids. And so, you know, I have a few months working with her so I'm just seeing it. Do you recommend any kind of prep, like working with emotional release tools, getting her kind of in that mode beforehand?
So I want to say meltdowns and temper tantrums are welcome. Just providing a bigger embrace. You know, they're going to happen. Kids do them anyway. And we're not in a place of like, let's provoke the kids. Whereas with the adults in ISTA, sometimes it's like, hey, we have to provoke the adults a bit to get them into that state. I do want to paint the picture though, that like, you know, the format of the week. So in terms of preparation, unless Rich or Crystal Dawn has anything, I would say come as you are. And what you're coming to is, hey, there will be pods. There'll be small groups for kids to express themselves. There'll be big circles where they can learn about like public speaking and expressing their emotions. There will be dance. There will be a lot of the same kind of spaces where kids can find out who they are, just as we find out who we are in family in those various spaces. And that, you know, throughout that, whatever state they're in, whatever emotion comes up, it's not going to interrupt anybody else's process. It's just them being them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bree.
Yeah, this is kind of a comment / desire for what I'm hoping for during the week. Is I was reflecting on it this morning before jumping on the call. And then it came through really strongly when I was kind of channeling my inner child, when you guys were all introducing your inner children. And there is a huge curiosity that I have that I'm wanting to bring in, that like that sponge like kind of energy where I'm wanting to really soak up like all the varied different experiences of what being in a poly family is like for the children. Like, I'd really like to hear that from them, what their experiences are, what their understanding of it is. And then also from the parents to really find more tribe who are dealing with things that I have yet to experience. And that, you know, my co-parent and I, who's on the call, are venturing into a new type of family dynamic that we're trying to create together. And we don't necessarily have any models of that yet. So I'm just really looking forward to hearing from other parents who have co-parent relationships, who are dealing with separated families where one parent is poly and one parent is monogamous, the effects that has on a child, and like just have a space to be able to show up and be and express and learn from each other. And I'm just really looking forward to that aspect. And I'm really hoping that there's, aside from like the great conversations that we'll get to have, but like really deeper inquiries around like what it's like to be a family with different beliefs and opinions and lifestyles. Absolutely. And how what that looks like in a family dynamic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there will be times when the kids are all at the pool. It'd be like, okay, we've got an afternoon, and the parents all gather and kind of have a think tank or a heart share, or, you know, and it's really about whatever's alive there and then. And so if that's what's alive, that's what's going to get addressed. Yeah. Gorgeous.
And sorry, quick follow-up. Are the kids, if the kids are ever separate from the parents, are they supervised, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have, as you met some of the team, like some of the team can go and be lifeguards and hang out with the kids at the pool while we're having, you know, parents are talking. And yeah, we're gonna obviously safety first, you know, we're gonna make sure that everybody's in a safe place. And the venue is really conducive to, we're never that far away from our kids anyway. Yeah. Good.
The one thing that came to me around for preparing the kids, I think just, this is coming up because one of my granddaughters was one of those very sensitive children. So you know, depending on your child's sort of natural personality, you might want to be just talking about, like, we're going to be with a group of people and there's going to be other kids around. And, how, you know, if you know your child's very sensitive, you might want to be talking about, like, how do they, you know, how do they communicate when they're feeling, if they're feeling like they need to take some quiet space, or, you know, so just, I think just being sensitive to your child's personality and style, and knowing if you're coming into a group experience, that for some people that might be a little more, for, you know, for some children, for some adults too, that might be a little bit more challenging, and it might be a way to, how do we start thinking about what do we do to take care of our needs if it starts to feel like it's too much. Or, you know, and I think I personally would say, you know, give them a couple of tools. Like, I think hand screaming and power stomping are my two go-to tools that I use on a regular basis, you know, and make it playful and fun, and say, hey, yeah, if we need to move our energy, or just even shaking the body, because these are things you can use every day. And so I think it's more like thinking about your child's personality and how that might show up in a shared space with a lot of energy, because that might be a little more challenging for some people than others.
Awesome. I wanted to see, Camila, if you could represent, from the voice of someone who's not a biological parent, who came, because I think there's other people on the call who are aunties and uncles or wanting to be closer to family, but not necessarily have their own kids. Like, what's either the role or the value, or what that was like for you, and what's the medicine there?
Yeah. So I'm a biological mother of none. I'm a godmother of 3 sons, ages 5, 6, and 13. So I have a lot of depth in my life with children, and it's a really important part of the future that I'm choosing for myself, is to get pregnant and have children. So my vision around child raising is really tribal. It's like, let's all be in a group together and raise each other's children together. And this experiment, the ISTA Family Fusion, is a beautiful incubator for practicing exactly that. We are in a group together for the week. Sometimes the kids are at the pool with some of the assistants, like me and Jacob and Michael, and the parents are doing their thing separately. So the parents get the experience of someone else is caring for my child. And sometimes we're all together. And in those cuddle nights we were talking about, it was amazing watching kids choose to cuddle with other people's parents or other adults that aren't their parents. And how beautiful that is, to experience touch and sharing inter-family, right? So the tribal child rearing is very much part of what the ISTA Family Fusion value is for me. And then on a more personal, relational level, Jacqueline's actually a great example. So Jacqueline was there as a single mom with a 5-year-old daughter, and I bonded so hard with her daughter because support was needed for that family. There weren't 2 parents. And so I was with her daughter a lot of the time. And honestly, like, she is an honorary goddaughter for me. I love her to pieces. And that's what happens within just a week. And Jacqueline and I are close, and, you know, we maintain communication, and this was 3 years ago. So it's like, I am so excited to see her daughter again. And each time I have seen her in the last 3 years, it's like no time has passed, and we love each other, and we send messages to each other on the phone. So there's real bonding available, and, you know, parents are a yes to having support with their kids.
Beautiful. So one of the outcomes, I know Viraja's not here to talk about like her kids and the breakthrough that they had, but I do have, and I will post a video if you haven't seen it already, like 3 teenagers who came, who are talking about their experience. And it was like a full year afterwards, we had a reunion, and they're saying, this is how it, you know, shifted me. I'll say what the shift was in my family. Prior to family fusion, Devin was my blood family, and then I had my family of choice. And there was a sense in my being of that being separate. And after family fusion, my eyes opened and I was like, wow, he's my soul family. Like I really saw the soul that he is and that we chose each other. And ever since, I've never felt that separation of he's my blood family. It's like, he's part of my soul tribe. And there's a sense where whether or not he gets that, he feels like part of the soul tribe, not just an extension of that or separate from. And so, you know, the work that we did is ancestral work. And it happens, like it heals lineages, and it happens in planes and dimensions that we don't totally understand. And the personal, that is Devin, who's going through puberty, has his own resistance. Like in thinking about coming again, he's like, I don't want to do that again. Like he's got his, no right now. And the conversation that we're in right now is like, yeah, and you don't want to do school either, but there's certain things that are still very valuable. You go to school, it develops you. It's not always your first choice, but because this is the school that our family's choosing, we want to see how we can make the most of it. And so we're in that dialogue with him. And I wanted to name it because one of the questions we get from parents is like, how do I talk my kids into it? And what if they really don't want to go? Ultimately, we don't want your kid to be there kicking and screaming and like doesn't want to be there. We don't want to violate their consent. We want to make sure that they have a degree of like, okay, I can align with this. And they don't, even my son, like as much as I want him to be the poster child and to say like, he's all in, he's ambivalent, and it's okay. Because he also knows that there's things he can opt in and out of. And he's like clear, he's not going to participate in everything. So with our last 15 minutes, do we have other questions? Good.
I have one question.
I've got Ian first and then Jacqueline.
Okay.
Thanks, Katie. I had, you guys, thanks for hosting the call, by the way. You guys have alluded to sort of a shamanic sacred sexuality. And I guess I'd like to be a little more blunt around that. How does that play out for a 6-year-old, right? I mean, he's sort of, and I guess I'd first like to say I'm very sex positive, and I'm all about not repressing that and like getting away from the suppression that damages a lot of us. But yeah, the age appropriate thing, how does that really play out for a kid that's 6, or does it not play out at that age, or how do you sort of do individualized, I guess a real concrete example of how you do individualized intervention or emotional processing with the littler kids?
Thank you. Yeah. So there's a huge and important distinction between naturalist, which is being naked in nature, and sex positivity. Like I want to make that distinction first, because there is a way in which the space that there's a welcoming to being naked in nature. And if that is like either shocking or hard for a kid or not okay, like it's going to be a deeper, more challenging thing, because it's not like we can't tell other people to put their clothes on, but we can say not to be running energy around kids or moving towards orgasm or making out, or all of that is like not appropriate around developing kids who are curious about their body or maybe ashamed of their own body. It's just like, hey, we're in a space where we're body positive, and the sex positivity where sex is celebrated is only amongst consenting adults and not going to be in front of children unless there's no unless. It's like we're not having sex in front of kids, and that that age of consenting adults in California is 18. So the philosophy of sex positivity that we're hoping to model and install in Calvin, for example, is that he is inherently a sensual, erotic, innocent being. We want to celebrate his life force. We want to give him permission to explore his full expression. But when it comes to, anyone touching him or him touching anyone where the bathing suit covers, that's not, not appropriate. And so, there's and the beauty of clearly communicating that, not having that be in the shadows or some strange, unexplicable thing, like we'll provide a space where boundaries are talked about and it just gets normalized and kids get like, oh, cool, this is a safe place to, express myself. And there's places where adults only get to do other things that is not appropriate for us or we're not ready for.
So I remember because I came just the last day of the last family fusion, and I was just kind of hanging out with everybody and asking questions. And what I picked up from the kids and also from, I think Xavier, or I believe it was Xavier, was just that, how 6-year-olds, they're curious, they ask a question and you give them like a 1 or 2 sentence answer and then they're happy and they run off and they do their thing. So I think in an environment, a sex positive environment, questions may arise, right? Or curiosities may arise. And it's sort of like, but it's also the way of how do you meet kids when they have a question, but you don't go into a big, you answer the question. And if they have another question, they'll ask it. So it's, again, how do we just normalize our curiosity around, why are men and women's bodies different, or why are girls and boys' bodies different? It's what kids ask and have curiosity about. They don't need a long, explanation. They usually just take a simple explanation. And if they need more, they'll ask for more. So I think part of what the family fusion is, how do we meet kids in a really sex positive, open, way that we can understand we come from different backgrounds and also not like put an agenda on them, so it's really to just meet kids where they are. And kids, again, they come from a very open and innocent place, and they'll ask age appropriate questions because that's what makes, that's how it is. That's just how it works. So that would be my
Crystal's on this thing about we come from different backgrounds. Like, this is what nuclear families miss. Kids don't get to see the other backgrounds that other kids are coming from until they're in a tribal setting. And then it's like, oh, I get some of the kids at school don't have hippie, wild, parents the way I do, and like they understand, oh, there's other people that do. And I don't feel like so weird. My family's not so weird because look at these other families. Like it's a fun kind of cross-cultural exchange for them. Yeah.
Thank you. Did that answer the question okay, Ian? How does that land for you?
Yeah, it lands well. I guess I still feel a little vague in sort of how it plays out on a day-to-day kind of basis. I guess I was sort of hoping for like, I don't know, a sort of concrete example of how like a session would go, like and who would be there, how many kids would there, that sort of thing.
So Ian, I know we are going to have a private talk because you haven't been to ISTA. It's a real big stretch of like, what does that look like? Most of the other parents who have been to ISTA can probably imagine what that communal boundary setting looks like. So let's talk one-on-one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Good idea.
Forward to it.
And I'd like to add for Ian too, because I know you, brother, there's nothing that comes close to inappropriate as far as what the kids are around. It's summer camp. Like we're teaching them, conversations around their own boundaries and their own communication, for the like preteens and older kids. And for the younger kids, they're playing a lot, like when Jacqueline's daughter was there, she was basically in the river playing all the time. She wasn't sitting in class. So Calvin might just be playing all the time. It might feel literally just like camp to him. And, the sort of normalizing of adults maybe swimming naked or something like that, he's already going to feel comfortable with because you guys have that sort of sex positive home. So from a kid that young's perspective, it's play mostly.
Thank you. Jackie?
Hi, thank you so much for holding this container. I just love this like integrated family work so much. So my question is, so we're in this like close community in Costa Rica now, not super duper close, but like in a school with 50 or so families, and sexuality is like a really big topic right now. with lots of polarization, and it's just super crunchy. So Bonnabelle being almost 8 now, I remember when she was 5, like Camila said, like most of the time she was just like not really interested in being in our circle and wanted to go play in the river. But being 8, like now she's becoming more curious and like wants to know what's going on. And she's kind of in this like in between, you know, really little kid and like becoming, you know, going to be entering puberty at some point in the next few years. And I think my concern is like when she was 5 and she went, like her question when we got home was like, how come you were naked in front of everybody? And like since then, like that's become just normal life, you know, everybody's naked at the river in Costa Rica. It's like just the culture here. But I have a concern or a fear that like something else that is outside of normal is going to come up for her, and then she's going to go to her friends at school and it'll be like misinterpreted. And I don't know, I just like have a fear of being misunderstood or like some kind of local community drama going on, kind of like taking us and then Bonnabelle as an 8-year-old who will then, you know, be leading the ship with her 8-year-old lens of, you know, probably being misunderstood because she can't really encapsulate the whole picture.
So this is a beautiful example of, you know, when we do personal growth in family, there's a way that it's like, ooh, I need to protect my child and do this. And there's another way where we have to say, I have to do my work to release a lot of my fears about how I'm being seen, what the worst case scenario is, and to look at like, hey, yes, there's appropriate concerns as a parent for our child's safety, but then there's places where we're perhaps overprotective and looking at how do I become more free in my full expression and be more at peace with, you know, like parenting's a mystery, walk into the unknown and not try to control that every experience. And so that's my invitation to you, or my reflection for you is like, what a great opportunity for you to bring those fears and do your own work there. Mm-hmm. And then we can look at what's true for Bonnabelle.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you would say something like that.
And can I add another piece? We also do, part of the curriculum is that conversation with the children. So we do our best to help them understand this container we're in is probably different from what your life is like at school or at some of your friends' houses from school. So we try to give them a sense of how to talk about this in the outer world and help them understand that this is a special space where things might feel a little different. And there's certain things that make sense to talk about with, you know, teachers and certain things that don't. So we try to help integrate that with them. And of course, that's going to be different cognizant understanding depending on their age.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up the call. And I wanted to, you know, see perhaps from our faculty here if there's some closing notes. But I also wanted to just read that, you know, thank you, Megan, and others who are excited to join the journey. Another 5-year-old mom. We've got 3 5-year-olds, 3 parents of 5-year-olds now, which is kind of fun. And then I also just want to name, all right, so Yay Philippe wants to do a wrestling fight club roughhousing. That'll be fun. Okay, great. I want to name some of the ages because obviously, you know, my son's 15, Phoenix is 10. I know we have Regan 11, Sydney 9, Frankie is 8, Evelyn is 5. We're talking to Ayala who's 14, and there's a handful of you who haven't even, you know, like finished applications. And so we're curious to see what the group is, and genuinely like who shows up and what the ages are and what the interest is going to help us design what's the true curriculum. Because I want you to know part of the experiment is, although we have a journey intended, we're co-creating that with the souls that come. And there is this really powerful moment where the children are equipped, just as we're bringing our inner children, they're bringing their inner adults, and they get to bring their inner teacher, and their wisdom comes out. And so we'll look forward to learning from them on the journey. And that's a big part of what's, you know, where the real medicine comes is when they can step into their future selves of what's possible, because they really are the future. So those are my closing notes. Crystal, Dawn, and Rich, is there anything you want to say for closure?
You can go ahead, Rich.
Okay, thanks. I'm recognizing that this can, as a parent, can really be a vulnerable and almost fearful thing to step into. And my feeling is that when we show that to our children, that we're willing to be vulnerable, that we're willing to be stepping into something that scares us a little bit, that's a little bit uncomfortable, that will actually open the door to our children then opening up to us more and being open to discussion and that sort of thing. Where if we, put on this facade that we've got it all together and, and we know just how everything's going to be, that then that communication isn't as open. So I encourage everybody to do that, to step in and let their children witness you being vulnerable.
Good. So, Crystal, Dawn, before you say your closing note, Christine has had she just wrote that she's had her hand up for a long time, and I didn't see her. And we're going to squeeze you in, Christine, with your quick question. And if we can't answer it fully now, we'll make sure that it gets answered offline. Where are you?
Yeah, thank you.
There you are.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Maybe my internet connection is not really good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, okay. Since I have the feeling that maybe I am the only Ecuadorian in the group, I mean, from South America, and I don't know if this is, I mean, I would love to be able to join to this family fusion, but I don't know if there is any way to see a possibility for me and my son to travel to there, because it's another country, right? We're not in the same country.
Yeah.
So this is one question. And in the other, you don't have to answer now, but maybe later. And the other question is, what about if, my son is 15 years old. He has not explored, I guess, with another partner. But what about if this feeling, the sexual energy arises and really in the power that it has? How do you are going to manage or to guide these teenagers when they have this powerful energy to want to explore the way that they don't feel in the memory of the body that is not the moment, because the boundaries are not, if you're not 18, you cannot explore that sexually. So how are you going to guide this the way that, I mean, I don't want him to have this memory that I had this feeling, I had this power and powerful.
Yeah, got it, Christine.
And
I'm gonna cut you off because the sound.
You got me. You get it.
I do. I get you.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna pause there, and I'm gonna thank you and say that we'll have a conversation both about your coming from Ecuador or your 15-year-old and these powerful urges. So I'm gonna have a conversation with you separately. But I will say to the group that part of why we're doing this camp is exactly that. It's like we want to, how do any of us learn appropriate boundaries around this immense force that is stronger than fucking rocket fuel? Like, it's a powerful force on the planet. How do we learn? Practice and safety and communication. And so we're providing an environment with all the ingredients for tempering exactly that, the life force. And whether you're 5 years old or you're 15 or you're, that's what we're doing here. So I really want to welcome, that. And it is, if they can't get, this is a space where we're creating those boundaries. And if you can't get it here, how are you going to get it in the world? Because that's what we're here for. Good. So Crystal, Dawn, your closing notes.
Yeah, so I think what I want to say is that this family fusion is an experiment. And so an experiment, it means that we're going to show up. I know for sure that Katie and Rich and I and the assistants, we're going to all be showing up to create a really powerful space for curiosity, filled with love and freedom, and an opportunity to just be present. Right. And the magic, you know, it is, I would say the whole thing is really a shamanic journey. Right. You know, you're coming into the unknown, into, you know, and we're going to be exploring ordinary and non-ordinary reality, which is what we talk about in shamanism. And it's like, how do we open our hearts, show up authentically, and explore what it is to be human beings together, right? Who you know, are also can celebrate our divinity and our spirituality and our elemental energies and all of those things. So it's not so much, for those who've done ISTA trainings, it's not going to be like this curriculum driven experience. It's going to be very much feeling into each day and each moment, and how, you know, how the kids are moving and how the adults are feeling. And it's going to be a very alive experiment. So I think we come and we show up to do our best to create a really powerful experience. That, what was the words that Michael used? A peak family experience. And we really have no idea exactly what it's going to look like. And that's part of the magic. So that would be my invitation. If you're ready for magic and want to come and explore the unknown and the mystery in a place of love and freedom and acceptance, come join us.
Aho. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for showing up so big. We'll look forward to connecting. And, you know, just in closure, I want to thank Philippe for holding the temple gates and all the logistics, and to be in touch with Philippe about, about any registration questions that you have. Good. Okay, blessings.